Cool when it all works. Sorry for keeping you. Good morning, everybody, and good morning, Patricia and Shirley, and thank you so much for joining me this morning. You're very welcome to the Joanne and Friends show, and this morning both Patricia McParland and Shirley Muldoon from Shirley Yoga are joining me here on screen today. Thank you to the team in Destination Uri for all the work that they're doing behind the scenes, and indeed all of the opportunities that they're giving people to stay connected in a variety of different ways. So I caught some of Anya's cookery program yesterday, which was excellent, because I guess many of us are finding that we're actually cooking more, and I know we're all foodies, so we'll kind of come into that maybe a little bit in a while, but even at that, I absolutely love cooking and preparing food. But I guess I've been doing a lot more of it, and probably didn't realise just how some of my, albeit that there were healthy options, because I think we're very, very lucky here in our local area to have some fab sandwich bars and delis and, very accessible stuff that we can get, those healthier options at lunchtime and things. But I probably was definitely doing a lot more of it than I even would have thought in my own head. So it's super for people maybe who, this is a whole new world cooking at home, and to have the opportunity of those programs. And then for anybody that needs regular exercise routines and stuff like that as well, Destination Uri, and some chats and quizzes. There's been some really excellent stuff. So if you're watching in on this and you haven't checked out some of the other shows that are going on, give those a check. I've been really enjoying the quizzes and stuff as well. Cahil's busy preparing all of those. So ladies, thanks so much for joining me and agreeing to be here and have a chat. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, because I always find people do a much better job at that than I do. So Patricia, I'm going to go to you first. Do you want to give us a little intro into who you are, what you do, what you love, all those kind of things?
Okay. Well, I'm Patricia McParland, so I live in Camla, just outside Uri, not far from Joanne. And probably most of you who are tuning into this might know me from running the Positive Living Network in Uri, where I bring in different inspirational speakers most month to try to offer, I suppose, a space to create a more positive energy. So, and hopefully that people will get some inspiration to take away with them. I've also worked as a counsellor and a coach, but most of my work these days, I specialise in the field of dementia, social and psychological aspects of dementia. So a lot of my work is around education and training in that field. What do I love? I love lots of things. I probably love the opportunity to do all those different things in my life, which rather than the same thing all the time, I find that that's somehow good for my soul. I love to dance. I love to write. I love my garden. I love friendship, a million different things. So that's a brief summary of me.
Super, thank you, Patricia. And I guess we'll come to some of that work throughout this, because in particular, I think the work around dementia in that area is something as well that people might be finding a bit of a challenge with at the moment. Obviously, it's challenging for families at all stages, and the situation we find ourselves in at the moment brings a unique set of circumstances there as well that maybe we're not prepared for. So, and indeed all of your other work as well. So we'll come back and have chats around all of that. Shirley, tell us a little bit about you.
So I live not too far from Patricia. I'm just outside Camla, kind of halfway up a mountain. So I'm so blessed at the minute that for exercise, I can just go out the back door and head up the mountain. Work-wise, I teach yoga, meditation, and I also do corporate stress management. So that keeps me busy. And in the past week, I've been learning how to do yoga online, which has been probably given me a few gray hairs in the last week. But no, it's been good. It's been learning a new skill set, and it means I'm able to still connect with my students. In terms of what I love, oh God, the list goes on. Anything outdoorsy. So whether it's digging in the garden, whether it's walking with my dog, whether it's horse riding, whether it's down to the lake to swim or supboard, basically anything that's outdoors and involves fresh air, I just love. And then so passionate about like good food, and like you were saying, Joanne, we are so blessed in this area to have such really good food producers. But yeah, I love good food. I love growing food, eating food, not so much preparing. I'm kind of happy enough to let somebody else do the preparing, and then I will just demolish it. But yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. Passionate about health and wellness as well, and I'm excited to be here with you ladies this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, just as you're talking about food and good food, and one of the things we've connected with recently is raw milk. And I know the delivery will be here while we're still on air. So, and I've been so enjoying that journey to getting back to drinking raw milk. And for those that are watching in that aren't so familiar with what raw milk is, it is milk that is unpasteurized, full of all the good bacteria and all the enzymes and things that we need in milk, and still very much, very much tested and safe to drink. So we'll maybe have a touch in and a chat on some of that in a little while as well, and see where all of that goes. But what really interested me around our conversation over the last few days, when I touched base and invited you on to join me here, or asked you, would you kindly join me? Invite might be, I guess it's one of those, is it an invite, or is it like, stepping everybody out of their comfort zone? So I guess one of the key areas there was where we all kind of chatted and explored where we're at the moment, and then we had, the different emotions that are coming up, and we went into those. And what was at the core of those was kind of, we were expressing what we were feeling, but we also went into judging that and kind of feeling the guilt for feeling what we should be feeling. So some of the core things that came up for us there was guilt and judgment, I guess, and then evolving from that and being gentle with ourselves. So Shirley, I'm going to go to you on that. How have you been finding your time at the moment? We've been thrown into, I guess one of the things I've been saying is that this is a new space for us. However, it's not a new space for humanity. People throughout, since time began, have experienced some of these different changes and different challenges, and they've had to navigate those. So how have you been finding this time?
Well, I quite enjoy quiet time anyways. So I'm actually enjoying having that time to be in my garden and actually not feel guilty that I should be somewhere else, that I should be connecting with a friend, or I should be doing this, or I should be doing that. It has lifted that pressure, that it's just like, I can just do what I want around the house today, and I can stay here and I have permission to stay here. So I've liked that element of it. Obviously missing the connection with, friends. Normally I would be walking with somebody up the mountain, or, out horse riding with the girls. And so I'm missing that element. I suppose getting back to what you're saying about the guilt, initially part of me was feeling guilty that I wasn't sitting and doing nothing, because I suppose the circles that I travel in, being a yoga teacher, and it just comes at you that this is a wonderful opportunity. It's a golden opportunity to sit now and relax and connect in with yourself and get to know yourself. And I was like, eesh, I'm not doing any of that. I'm outside, busy. So I was kind of starting to feel a wee bit guilty actually for not doing that. But then I got over that in a relatively short period of time. And now, I'm happy enough to be out there. But the guilt did come in definitely briefly. And then I questioned it and I went, no, hang on, you're actually doing what you love to do, which is out digging in the garden or out walking the dog or I've been practicing some techniques on the horses, like relaxation techniques that I learned recently, and I done a level 1 pranic healing course. So this time off has been giving me time to kind of practice on that, and use the dog and the horses as guinea pigs to see, you know, can I get them to relax more by doing these things with them. So maybe that was a off topic from your question.
Oh, not at all. There's kind of no topic really at all. I guess this is exactly what this is about. It's about chatting, about allowing conversation to unfold. And I love what you're saying there about the healing with animals. And I do love horses. I wouldn't call myself an animal lover in the sense that I love them at a distance, and I kind of, you know, I like them, but I wouldn't be an animal lover. And yet I can see the absolute joy that people get from being around animals. And I guess the teachings that we can take from animals that can really guide us, and, you know, and nature, I guess, in general. Very randomly, just the other day, I often look for kind of, I suppose, signs and, you know, what nature's telling me and what messages we can take, because I think, you know, there's so many signs and symbols out there, and sometimes it's taking the time to tune in. And through this journey for me, there's been lots of different ones. There's been the rivers, you know, trusting and learning to go with the flow and recognizing, you know, that reminder, that analogy of not trying to paddle upstream to kind of go downwards. And the other day, the thing that kind of caught my attention was a pigeon. It was really, really strange. It was like a pigeon. And I didn't, you know, a lot of the things, maybe flowers and things like that, or butterflies, you know, they're pretty beautiful and you might capture them and take a photograph. Well, this pigeon drew my attention, but it, you know, I didn't actually take a photograph of it. Like, who photographs a pigeon, really? You know, it's kind of like, you know, but it was loud and it was noisy and it was making its presence known. And I looked into some meanings around the animals and around pigeons. And, you know, the themes that pigeons are there in kind of, from nature, are around adaptability to environment, and how adaptable, like, pigeons apparently are like one of the only birds that can live on every continent in the world. I guess not all at the same time, but it was like really that adaptability, and those were the themes about how we can adapt and do different things. So you know, I think that time in nature is so beautiful and so crucially important. And I know a lot of energy healing work begins with animals and plants in particular. So Patricia, for yourself, how are you finding this time at the moment?
I am finding it mixed, similar emotions to Shirley, but almost on the other side of the coin, because I think for quite a while I was in complete shock, you know, as to what was happening. And probably for the first, you know, not necessarily when things really, when we were asked to really close everything down, but even before that, a lot of fear, you know, and I think I spoke to you about this at the time. I felt like fear and procrastination, putting everything off, were sitting beside me every single day. I kind of froze for a while, and I think that was just shock. And then as I suppose I adjusted, you know, to this new reality, the other thing that came up for me was a different type of guilt to yours, Shirley. I was kind of thinking, well, because all of these, there are lots of things, you know, on offer, just as you were describing, Joanne, earlier. So, you know, there's an abundance of resources, courses, you name it now, all being offered online. And that is a wonderful thing. What I went into, all I wanted to do was really just be. I wasn't interested in doing anything for a while. So then I went into the opposite guilt of what you were talking about. I was like, surely I should do something. Like, you know, I run Positive Living Network in Uri. I'm sure I should be posting something encouraging. You know, I'm about, like, really, yeah, definitely I should be doing something like that. But I could no more have done that and meant it. I could have done it, but it wouldn't have been real. It wouldn't have been from my heart. But there was that feeling of, you know, as the person I am and the way I live, I should be putting something out there, but I don't feel it. Now, I already feel that. I mean, I'm here this morning, so clearly that's shifting. So, in a way that it wasn't at the beginning. But I find it very interesting, and I think that's what started our conversation the other day. You know, in the absence of many of the pressures that we had in busy lives, I think we're nearly creating a whole new set of them.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, you know, in all of this freedom now, there are options. And I think one of the things I mentioned was, you know, you see all these things coming up online of families doing videos and they're singing. And you know, a parent recently said to me, you know, she said, I look at them and all I feel is inadequate because I'm lucky if they're not killing other by lunchtime. And I thought, you know, there is all that in the midst of it, that we can find this other set of pressures when we're all going to find a different way to be with this. It is a huge shock for all of us. Our world has changed profoundly.
Absolutely.
So I suppose what I'm hoping is that with ourselves and with each other, we can be a little more compassionate and a little more forgiving.
Yes, I think compassion and forgiveness and empathy, I guess, are you know, the qualities that I feel I'm working on embodying. And in the beginning, when I find myself moving into in that very early stage, where I find myself moving into, I guess, judgment of myself and of other people, you know, and not big judgment, but simple, like, why are they there? Why are they still going out? Have they not heard the, you know, those kinds of things? Or, you know, why is, you know, for example, somebody choosing to wear gloves, but they don't actually understand that whole chain of gloves, and, you know, they're not actually using them right, and all of those, you know, all of those things. And those were all thoughts that were going kind of, you know, you find them at different times throughout your head. But what I worked on doing was, if I can see judgment, or if it were I notice myself judging either myself or an action by someone else, if I can perhaps see the fear that is motivating that particular measure. And, you know, that fear could be loads of different things. That might be fear of being on your own. You know, someone may have been still going out because they were so absolutely petrified of being in the house by themselves, and all that might mean physically or emotionally or whatever for them. So, you know, I was trying to replace kind of judgment with fear, both my own and other people's. Now, not to say I got it right all the time. I still find myself frustrated at some of the actions that I was seeing, and you know, and some of the things I was even doing myself. But I guess that's kind of a place to aspire to, rather than a place that we embody all of the time. And I think, you know, what we've sort of discussed there shows how we can all be different with this, and yet however we are is okay if it's okay with us. And, you know, and I think the point that you made there, Patricia, about the feeling of inadequate is really, really important to remind ourselves of right now, because even in our connections with perhaps people outside of our home, they're very snapshot moments of what's going on. And social media, as we know, on a logical level, only ever gives us a snapshot. You know, that dance video that somebody's seeing is maybe 5 minutes of, I needed to do something right now to make this feel normal, because 10 minutes ago they were killing each other. But when we're observing that through the lens and through the camera and through the social media channels, we're not seeing the before and the after. We're seeing that snapshot of a moment. And, you know, I'm laughing at us here on screen because someone was saying to me yesterday, kind of joking about doing this, and they were saying, you know, is it true that everybody on camera is naked from the waist down? You know, like, it actually doesn't matter what, you know, we'll stand up and we're not. But, you know, I'm sitting here with 2 odd socks on and no shoes, and nobody can really see that. And in fact, there might even be a hole in the toe of one of my socks. But this bit looks, you know, polished and, well, I hope, for camera. And, you know, it's those snapshots that we see, and the filtered images, or the, you know, the kind of squared out stuff. And it's important now, I think, more than ever, for all of us to remind ourselves that that's what we are seeing. And if we see enough people posting sort of similar things, then it's easy to think, well, everybody is doing all of these things, but each person might only be doing it for 5 minutes in a 24-hour period, but we get kind of consumed by that space. And I guess I was speaking yesterday to a friend who is in Australia, and, you know, that sense of that the whole world, or a great deal of it, is actually experiencing the same thing. For me, struck me yesterday. I was like, wow, like this is happening everywhere. We're all, you know, at this point in time, the entire world is experiencing change. And with that came actually a sense of connectedness. You know, there was a sense for me in that moment, there was a sense of peace, because I went, wow, you know, we're all in this together. We're all, you know, in a sense, there's still comparison of other people, but less of that. Well, I wonder what they're doing and where are they going on their holidays, because nobody's going anywhere. You know, that kind of thing. And you mentioned, both of you mentioned the garden there, and we've been so blessed with the weather. Has anybody? I know a lot more people venturing into some food planting and things like that. Anybody ventured that route yet?
Probably Shirley.
Shirley, are you doing some?
Well, I have ventured down that route for several years now. Most years, though, I tend to kill more than I grow. So I get it to a seedling stage and I get really excited, and then life gets busy and it either doesn't get watered or it gets watered too much, or, you know, so for the last few years I've been growing some things very successfully that don't need a lot of skill. So the likes of like kale and any of your squashes, pumpkins, those kind of things are just happy to do their own thing. Anything that needs a little bit more love and attention has kind of, came to a sorry end. But I just continue to try every year, and I go, oh, sure, I'll learn now a little bit more. And each year I feel like I've got a little bit more knowledge. So yeah, I started planting my seedlings back in February. So yeah, I've got quite a few things going on, and fingers crossed now I seem to have more time to give them that love and attention that they need. But come back to me kind of August time and I'll tell you what I've grown this year, because that'll be the telltale.
Well, for the first time actually recently, I decided again, a bit of one of those things they find me. I was kind of doing a little bit of tidying, and I tend to leave dandelions this time of year for the bees to feast on early on in the season. But there was one that had grown obviously over the winter in a drain, and it was kind of blocking, you know, it was blocking things from draining away. So I needed to, and there was no fluoride on it yet. So I decided I was kind of clearing that up a little bit. And I made a green juice with dandelion leaves. And I was like, you know, why have I been buying spinach for all this time? or even thinking about growing, you know, some like whenever there's an abundance at the moment, particularly of things like nettles and dandelions and those kind of things. And I mean, nettle pesto is just incredible. It creates such a fab base for it. So even without growing, I think there's opportunities for us now to connect with nature and all that's kind of going on there too. So maybe, and I noticed actually anybody that's watching in, and I know there's a few other flowers coming out, and as I say, keep a balance, don't steal all the dandelions. But for anybody making Play-Doh, dandelion flowers make a fabulous yellow coloured Play-Doh. So for anybody wanting to dye a bit of Play-Doh for children, they can make a really good idea there. And Tricia, you're doing some gardening as well. So how's that been going?
My gardening, you know, skills are limited, but I do love to plant out lots of pots every year for colour. So I managed to do that this year as well, with lots of spring bedding. So I do have, you know, around the outside lots and lots of colour now for when I'm sitting outside, and I'm in sort of tidy up mode for the garden. You know, bits that I would never have got to, I'm now getting to.
And the weather certainly, the weather has
the weather's
really
amazing.
With that. The weather has definitely helped us along those lines. And I guess, Patricia, just to touch on, we mentioned your work with people with dementia, and obviously families may be in a situation there where they're finding this particularly challenging and difficult. Are there any words of wisdom or support, I guess, that you can offer there? And I know it's a very difficult one because it is an unprecedented time.
It is, and as you know, I sit on the board of the Alzheimer's Society in the South, and the feedback that we're getting, because we obviously had to close, there are 48 day centres that we run in the South, and we had to close them all. So all of those people who would have had support, and it's no different in the North, are now at home all of the time, which means there's an even greater pressure then on the people who are trying to support them, carers living at home, family members trying to come in and out. And I suppose if I was trying to think of what would I say, it would go back to some of the things we spoke about earlier, to please be gentle with yourself. Don't be over ambitious around what you'd like to try to do, because the difficulty is that for many people with dementia, depending on whatever point they're at in their journey with dementia, the world is already often a strange and sometimes frightening place to be. So this situation where for all of us, it has also become in many ways a stranger place and a more frightening place to be. That energy is being communicated to the person with dementia, even if they're no longer in conversation as much as they might have once been. So for them, it's, for a person who's trying to live with this condition, it could be really very, very unnerving to notice that all around them, other people are experiencing fear and an unsettled environment. So, I would definitely be saying where as far as possible, try to maintain routines. Where you have routines and create some structure around your day that person is still accustomed to or was always accustomed to, try to maintain those. Be gentle with yourself and with each other. As I said, sometimes we have all these expectations of what we should be doing. And when you get it wrong, forgive yourself and let it be. For someone trying to support a person who's living with dementia, it is emotionally, sometimes physically, really, really challenging and exhausting. So more than anything, I would want people to allow themselves that they cannot be, this 24-hour-a-day angel. You just can't.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, sorry, go on ahead, Patricia.
No, you're okay, go on.
I was going to say, just what was coming up for me there is that advice that we hear time and time again, to look after our own oxygen mask first, and that will give us the strength. When we look after ourselves, that gives us then the strength to kind of look after other people as well. So, and
I think the other thing that is useful, in terms, obviously it is taking care of yourself, and even for people who are, not just in the home, but there are still carers, formal carers going in to support families who also face a great deal of challenges because they're moving from house to house. There's a great deal of fear. They're managing ever more complicated situations. So, but the idea that to remind yourself regularly of how this must be for a person who is living with a very, very challenging cognitive condition, who is perhaps struggling to put the pieces together on a normal day. And in this world, that, how much more difficult that is. So, when it all seems so frustrating, to remind yourself of how that world must feel for the person who's actually living with the condition.
Yeah.
It's just a useful way to pull yourself back.
Absolutely. And I think that can be transferred to so many different areas. I know a lot of people at home at the moment with children with autism or sensory processing issues, and whilst very different conditions, but very similar often,
Challenges,
you know, the situation and the things that we need to remind ourselves of as well. And we just had a lady watching in there originally from Warren Point and living in Dundee. So hi, I didn't quite catch your name, but hi for watching in. And Claire Hegarty's watching in as well. So Linda, thanks Linda for watching in. And Claire's saying hi there as well, Patricia. Claire, the nutritionist, to Claire, yes. And, you know, some really, really important points there. Patricia, thanks so much for bringing those to our awareness again, because, you know, there's lots of people, as you say, both, you know, still going in and out of homes with their roles and how all of that is. And, you know, one of the things that has struck me over the past while is how much emphasis we have been putting on physical well-being and physically keeping ourselves safe and all of those things. And, you know, some of the things that perhaps many of us have worked towards over the last while in terms of equality and making sure that emotional well-being and mental well-being are a piece of that jigsaw puzzle as well, have in many cases, and, you know, arguably for very right reasons, but in some cases have maybe, you know, been sidestepped, and we're now just thinking of the physical safety and all of that. So it's important to remind ourselves of our humanness and the humanness of everybody else that's in those situations, I guess, as well. And Shirley, just to, I guess, tap in, you're still doing your yoga classes, you've transferred those online, so a new skill set with that. And how are your students finding that transition? Have they transitioned relatively easy across? Is it maybe given a wider reach than what you had before? How's that been going?
Yeah, so I'd done my first couple of sessions on Facebook Live. And so I had friends contact me from Australia, another friend living in Berlin, a girl that lives down in Clare, another woman in Cork. And they were like, oh, this is wonderful. We can come to your yoga now. Yeah. So yeah, it's opened it up in that sense. Facebook Live seems to be kind of easy for everybody, probably because it's been around for a while. This last week, then I tried out Zoom to see kind of what the difference would be. But everybody has been amazing. Like, my students are so lovely, and they're just willing to give everything a lash. I think it was more stressful for me as the host than for them as the participants. But they were so patient with me. I had to iron out, you know, audio, you know, like sound issues and picture issues and Wi-Fi and all of that kind of stuff. But they were just like super patient and just take it in their stride, and they'd be like, yeah, we can hear you now, Shirley, or Shirley, your lips are moving, but we can't hear anything. So
there's a delay on the line.
Yeah. Or even like I would have muted myself and not been aware of it, or but yeah, so it definitely has the students that were always coming to me have been wonderful. And then it has, I'm still doing some of the Facebook Live stuff as well, and that seems to be getting the broader reach then to people that would have, you know, come to me before but might have moved, and now they're like, oh, this is great. But I've got lovely feedback from people, even people that I haven't taught before, and my students said, oh, you know, check out this Facebook Live class, and they done it, and they come back and said, oh my goodness, I feel like so much better after doing that. It's just gentle movement and breathing, but it really does have a huge impact on the nervous system. And so it always makes me feel like really happy to know that I've made a difference to somebody, you know. Yes. So yeah, it's been, this week has been a lot more, it's moved a lot more seamlessly, you know. There hasn't been as many hiccups this week. I kind of got through all of that last week. So this week I'm loving the online stuff. If you had asked me last week, it might have been a different response.
Yeah, and I think I'll come back to that in just a second in terms of that cyclical nature and how things can change as well. But I'm not sure if either of you know him. There's a guy called Dr. David Hamilton, and I'm a huge fan of Dr. David Hamilton and his work on. And he's I saw him in Dublin a few years ago as well, and I'm definitely a bit of a groupie. I really love his stuff. I love everything about him. And I caught one of his videos yesterday, and he's a scientist, so he's everything that he does, and he talks about love and kindness and the power of the mind and placebo effect, and he's a whole wealth of stuff. But his background is pharmaceutical, so he backs everything up with lots of science and lots of statistics and all these kind of things. And yesterday, for a bit of fun, I guess, or so he said, he did a presentation on I'm gonna get the wording wrong here, but basically the contagious effect of kindness. So he was comparing, and not to diminish the coronavirus impact thing, but he was just using those similar models to look at how kindness works. And what he said, and I love there where you were saying that you like to feel like you've made a difference to people. So he said that I think the infection rate of coronavirus is 2.5. Each of us will infect 2.5 people if we have symptoms or if we have the virus. Whereas an act of kindness, we infect 5 people with the effects of that. And he played it out, and he got to a point where he kind of had it in a graph, and he was like, this is the exponential rise of kindness versus coronavirus. And I guess he was, he wasn't in no way playing down the role of coronavirus, but he was just showing us how powerfully contagious kindness is and the ripple effect. And I love on the back of the screen there that we have that ripple effect, because absolutely, when we when we're have an act of kindness or we make a difference to someone else, then they go out into the world and they make a difference to someone else, and it's that whole exponential factor. But I guess it begins with ourselves and doing what, back to where we were at the beginning, is honouring what feels right for us, because when we are in that space, we're going to be much more able to be content and happy with the people around us. Do you want to pick some thoughts up on that, Tricia? I see you nodding away there.
Yeah, well, I think because kindness is so closely aligned with gratitude, which is, is one of my favorite topics. And, that is something I think that a lot of people are probably experiencing, or certainly the people that are talking to me, is that in the midst of all of this, that, they say that in order to be grateful, for example, you need to, in the first instance, notice, then appreciate, and then give thanks. So in this, I suppose, a little more time and space that people have, there is potentially more opportunity to, in the first instance, notice. So the things that we would normally take for granted, we are now noticing. So the bumblebee, the pigeon, the flowers in the garden, the sounds, whatever that might be, there is a little more room for it. And when you're in that space where you are starting to be grateful for all of the things that you would normally take for granted, that kind of, I suppose it is that notion, taking things for granted is actually what can push gratitude or kindness out the door. When you reach the point where there's something that's just an accepted part of your day that you literally take for granted, then there's very little room for gratitude or kindness. And I think once you move into that space of noticing and giving thanks, then that is where kindness is born. Absolutely. It's like, because when you are so grateful for whatever it is in your world, from, the smallest to the largest of things, the roof over your head to the smile that someone gave you this morning as you were out on your socially distanced walk, then you're in a place where it's much easier to be kind, isn't it? When you're feeling like that, it's so much easier. And kindness generally is not a huge act. It is the smile. It is the thank you. It is, in better times when we're physically closer to each other, reaching out and touching someone's arm when you see they're in pain. So kindness is easier, I think, to practice when you're sitting in a place of gratitude. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. I think, how did that resonate with you, Shirley?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me, gratitude is massive. Gratitude is something I do every single evening. I will write down 3 things that I am thankful for that happened that day, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. You know, it could be, oh, I had a great cup of coffee today. Do you know, it doesn't have to be a monumental thing. Or like you were saying, Patricia, I've got like this home, that, like, you know, that I can retreat to. So,
Yeah.
you know, at the minute, and I think what you, like, if we change one word, it can change our whole perspective. Or if we can bring gratitude to the forefront, then it diminishes the negativity. For me, it's like a balancing effect. So the more we can be grateful for, the more the fears and the worries start to come down, and they kind of, you know, you can balance them out. So yeah,
And I think
gratitude, I always do. And like, you're the change of a word. So I read a post recently that was like, you're not stuck at home, you're safe at home. So changing that one wee word can change your whole perspective. So yeah, between gratitude and then just like selecting your words, your terminology carefully, it can have a huge, huge impact. There's days I could be like, first thing in the morning, I'm really grumpy. And I'm like, nothing has actually happened today. Why am I so narky? Why am I so grumpy? You know? And then I'll instantly just be like, right, what are you grateful for? What, look around you, what have you got? And I'm like, oh, well, I really actually like, you know, this cushion on my couch, or I really like whatever. And it just instantly changes my mood.
Yeah.
And then it changes how I interact with people as well. I'm a much nicer person then to meet that day, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And they do say that, you know, that is literally what gratitude can do. It's almost like it completely turns a frame. So it shifts perspective. So, you know, in these times when, you know, there is a lot to be fearful of, there's no denying that. You know, this virus is something this world, you know, in this form has not seen before. And certainly on the scale that we've seen it, as you were talking about earlier, Joanne, where it's touching almost every country across our world. And I suppose because now, you know, as a result of media, you know, social media and other forms of media, we have access to this story all over the world being played out.
Yeah.
And to that sort of build from really December onwards, this build of where it was the other side of the world, it wasn't anything to do with my world, to where it gradually moved across to now we kind of bear witness to the fear and pain of all of the world as well as living in it ourselves. Yeah. So, you know, it's not about, you know, when we think about gratitude, sometimes I think there's that tense, well, if someone is very ill, or if someone is dying, or there is something really challenging going on in their life, and well, how would I be grateful? And it's not about suggesting that you would be grateful for that, but about it making room for still being able to see the tiny gifts that are always present, no matter what is happening. So whether that is in the midst of illness, the friend who reaches out with, I don't know, the gift of simply being present, or the gift of a meal cooked, or whether it is, you know, at some point, like when I look back at some of the hardest times in my life now, and of course, you know, with hindsight, I'm not playing that down, but I'm so grateful that they were there because they changed my life in a way that I now really appreciate, even if I couldn't see it at the time. So they've taken the opportunity in the midst of all of this to notice, you know, the bird in your garden, or to notice the fact that, you know, you're warm and comfortable. There are people in the midst of this who don't have homes. So there is always room for gratitude, even the worst of times.
I think so one of the things that has been coming up for me around that is that, you know, someone once said to me, when we practice gratitude, we often talk about where we take the simple things for granted, or the small things for granted. And it's, you know, or we use phrases like, oh, it's the small things that make a difference. And, you know, those types of phrases. And I remember someone saying to me once, and we get to a point where we realize that the simple things and the small things were neither simple or small. And that has been very much in my thought pattern over the last while. And I'm also very aware and mindful as we're talking that, you know, we are experiencing this through very similar, albeit that we're having different experiences, but we're in very similar places. So we are at home.
Yeah.
We aren't needing to go out as key workers and things like that. So I'm very, very aware that that's a very different world for people as well. And also there are people, and this is really important also just to mention, you know, there may be people listening in right now where home isn't safe. And if you are one of those people, please reach out and get the support that you need. And we will, in the comments of this, put in some contact details for people who may be listening in, where there are, you know, risks at home as well. So very mindful of all the different ways that people are experiencing this time. But one of the things, as you were talking about, Patricia, that really made me kind of get the gratitude stuff in difficult times, you know, and how to use gratitude in difficult times and difficult moments, was that it's a bit like the analogy of if you're driving down the road and you know, as a child, you counted all the red cars, or you counted all the blue cars, or you did whatever. It didn't mean that the other cars weren't there. It simply meant that you focused on the red cars. So in terms of gratitude, it's not that we're, you know, when we move into a space of being grateful or counting our blessings, it's not that the other stuff miraculously disappears. It's kind of still there, but it's where we shift our focus in those moments of, this is difficult, and someone reached out to me and supported me through that. And so, and you know, and as I say, I'm very aware that so many people will be having such different journeys with this, but and I'm also very aware that we could talk all day on loads of this, on all of this stuff. And so, but we're coming towards the end of the show. So thank you both for joining me and for sharing your experiences, your thoughts, your wisdom. To all of our listeners watching in, either live or watching back, thank you. We had another comment there from a guy, I think it was Stephen, was saying just that he's really enjoying the conversation in the show. So please feel free, if you're watching in, to share this with anybody else that might benefit. I know in my chats with Patricia and Shirley, I always take, you know, something away that's going to be a little bit of food for thought. And we started talking about our love of food. We're going to come back to that at another time as well and explore some of that as well. But ladies, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to chatting with you soon. And thank you to all our viewers for watching in. Have a blessed day, and I hope everybody gets an opportunity to enjoy a little bit of sunshine and top up some of that vitamin D today. So thanks a million, and thanks to Destination Uri for hosting. And I'll be back on Monday with two other guests to chat things out about, and explore, I guess, a bit of life and living. Thank you all.
Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.